The story begins as we see that a half-naked masked man just defeated a monster. A creepy girl that probably had a few too many energy drinks watches nearby and celebrates that the Dark Lord was defeated. The luchador-looking guy proudly watches as the beast vanishes and the sun emerges from behind the clouds. His name is Sunraku, and the weird girl once again praises the warrior. She points out how it's been a long, hard journey, and Sunraku couldn't agree more. Sunraku then surprisingly ticks to the sky and exclaims that it's time for Faria to go with the Dark Lord. He then does her a huge favor by rearranging her hideous face with his foot and tells her that she is the real menace in this world. We see that Sunraku was actually in a game. He proudly proclaims that he finally beat it, and also managed to get revenge for everything that Gargoyle put him through. In this world, display-based games are considered retro, and fully immersive VR games have become the norm. Beneath the small number of works of significance lies a massive pile of releases whose games' designs don't live up to their improved graphics technology. These games are known as trash games. Although most people rightfully despise trash games, there are those who gleefully seek them out, and these people are called freaks. Our protagonist, named Rakuro, is one of these freaks, and he proclaims that rumors were true, and the game he just played was a giant pile of garbage. Rakuro compares the feeling he gets from beating a trash game to how a convict feels when finishing up a prison sentence. This psycho then wonders what trash game he will try next, and we learn that he is known as the Trash Game Hunter. When he heads downstairs, we learn that his mom is kind of a weirdo too, as Rakuro tells her that one of her butterflies got out. At school, some random girl stalks Rakuro and practices what she plans to say to him. She decides to ask about video games and waits for the perfect moment, but some other kid beats her to it. At a game shop, the owner, named Amain, hopes that summer vacation will help bring her more business. Rakuro's stalker, named Ray, arrives at the shop. Amain knows exactly why she is there, but tells Ray that Rakuro isn't there today. Ray is too shy to admit to it, but Amain points out how nice it must be to be young and in love. Amain explains that Rakuro has been busy trying to crack an extra special trash game, so he hasn't been there in a while. She shows her the game called Faria Chronicle Online and states that it's a legendary trash game. All the allies in the game have terrible AI. Enemy attack patterns don't make any sense, and there are an absurd number of bugs in the code. The game is also extremely hard. Serious skills are needed even just to beat the first boss, so it has caused tons of players to rage out of control, throwing their headsets like lunatic degenerates. On top of all that, she has also heard that players have to fight the final boss in board shorts and a mask. Just then, Rakuro arrives looking for any new trash games that might have come out. He makes his way to the counter, and we learn that Rai is an absolute coward as she instantly disappears. Amain is shocked to see him there, and Rakuro proudly announces that he beat Faria Chronicle Online. Ray watches from around the corner like the stalker she is, and hears Rakuro explain that the game was a spectacular pile of garbage. The worst part about it was the female lead Faria. She's the cause of pretty much every problem he ran into on the journey. She makes every situation worse and gets villagers and party members killed. She also never suffered any consequences for anything, since she would always find a way to blame it all on the last boss, even though the boss didn't do anything and she was a problem all along. Rakuro continues to trash the trash game as he explains that if he ever gave Faria even the tiniest little shove to vent his annoyance, she would just get upset. She would not go with him anywhere and refuse to move the story along. The autosave would lock him into the state of affairs, and it would take 3 hours to get back in the psycho's good graces. Amain is surprised that he didn't just give up, which makes sense since he would be able to get an actual life. But he explains that that's how they get you. In the 3 minutes between beating the final boss and before the credits start rolling, you can beat the snot out of the crazy girl without fear of retaliation. Rakuro points out the irony, since the more Faria annoys you, the more determined you become to brave all the garbage to experience the 3 minutes of heaven. This guy clearly takes trash games way too seriously, as he states that when that moment of bliss finally comes, it's as if all his frustrations are wiped away. In that moment, he felt like he understood why he was put on this earth. For some reason, Ray is smiling like a creep while hearing this, and Rakuro explains that the trash game was too good. Now he can't think of what to follow it up with. Amain comes up with the absurd idea to not play a trash game for once. She explains that experiencing the lows in life can help appreciate the highs, but the reverse is also true. Amain then introduces him to the game Shangri-La Frontier, the fully immersive VR game with over 30 million players. She continues to convince him, and gives Ray a not-so-subtle wink for some reason. She explains that it can be fun to try things designed for mass appeal now and then, and Rakuro seems to give it some serious thought. Back home, we find that Rakuro's dedication to his gaming experience reaches dangerously high nerd levels as he studies the history of the game. He finds that Shangri-La Frontier, aka SLF, went on the market less than a year ago, and it set a Guinness World Record for simultaneous player logins. The concept is a colony fleet that came from space died out, but not before leaving a new society behind. Thousands of years later, the PCS are living their lives at roughly medieval tech levels. This piques his interest as it's a setup that allows for effortless inclusion of sci-fi elements. Rakuro seems to be getting convinced since unlike Faria, which is so bad that haters find themselves desperately searching for redeeming features, this game is so beloved that its few haters are completely drowned out by tens of thousands of fans. Rakuro puts down his gamer fuel and decides to try the game out. We then learn a bit about the company that made the game called Utopia Entertainment Software. It was founded by the genius programmer Tsukuyo Tsukuri, who developed a fully immersive VR game system. It's a leader in the fields of software development, hardware, and internet service provision. Rakuro puts on his virtual reality headset and wonders how long it's been since he played something that wasn't trash. The game begins with character creation, and Rakuro is amazed by how many options there are for classes. He chooses a twin-blade mercenary for its flexibility, and then moves on to Origin. He reads that Wanderers build defense slowly, but get bonuses to luck. Luck affects critical chance and item drop rate, so he decides to go with that. Things begin to get really exciting when he finds how many options there are to character customization, as it allows him to even change race and body type. He makes some really strange noises as he gets a bit too excited, and he reminds himself to calm down. Rakuro realizes that he has been so poisoned by trash games that he is now getting blown away by silly small stuff. Seemingly forgetting about what he just said, Rakuro excitedly states that it's time to go hardcore on character design for the first time in forever. We then surprisingly see that his finished character design looks a bit strange, but it at least saves us the pain of having to look at his ugly face. He is not to be mistaken as a half-naked furry since he actually has a very good reason for doing this. We learn that his playstyle consists of ignoring armor in favor of getting the best weapons possible. These weapons are costly, of course, but in SLF, amazingly, you're given the option to sell your starter equipment during character creation, and you can make quite a profit. Rakuro thankfully wanted to hide his face, and the only option was the dumb-looking bird mask. He had no choice as it would be pretty awkward for him to play half-naked if everyone could see his face. Rakuro is the type of player who uses the same name in every game he plays, so he inputs the name Sunraku. He lays down on his bed and finally enters the game. Rakuro skips right past the prologue because who actually cares, and arrives in the world of the god-tier game to find one of his kind. It flies away, and Rakuro is immediately impressed since moving around feels pretty much like real life. He tests everything by running and climbing through the area, and points out how much better everything feels compared to the game with the disgustingly hideous girl in it. Rakuro marvels at how large the world is and pulls out a map. He wonders why he didn't start out in a tutorial town for beginners like most games, and doesn't realize that those who choose Wanderer as their origin start out at a random point in the beginner's area. He decides to head to the starting town, but once again admires how good the controls feel. He checks his stats and acknowledges that his low defense is because of his half-nakedness, but hopes that his high luck stat will make up for it. Just then he is surprised to be attacked so soon as he encounters a goblin. Rakuro refuses to be a half-naked coward and decides that it's time to see what the game's combat engine is made of. The brave little goblin initiates the fight, but probably regrets all his life decisions as Rakuro uses a powerful attack to slice him in half. Rakuro impresses himself, but acknowledges that that goblin was just a scrub enemy in the intro. It does level him up though, and he sees that its axe can be dual-wielded. Something moves in some bushes nearby, and Rakuro thinks about how there's a lot to learn in the game, like monster weaknesses, patterns, and item drops. He states that whether it's a trash game or god-tier game, everyone gets the feeling he's getting now. The elation of diving head-first into a new world. It's something that can't be found in real life. His enemy finally emerges from the bushes and just barely misses his attack on Rakuro. The attack was extremely powerful, and he acknowledges that it would have put him down if it hit him. The terrifying bunny goes in for another attack, but this time Rakuro blocks it, and he counters while landing a critical hit. Bugs Bunny with rabies is far too determined though and continues attacking. Rakuro is disappointed with what this game has to offer, and we see that he has pierced the bunny. He explains that the bunny just kept going for his neck, so it was far too easy to figure out how to counter it. He is glad to see that he has leveled up even more, but disappointed to not see the rabbit's sword as loot. Just then his stat screen reveals that he has met a certain condition and learned the skill flash counter. Apparently he can unlock skills by taking certain actions, so Rakuro takes more moments to appreciate how well designed the game is. He realizes that since a player's own skill supplements their dodges and parries, he can fight pretty well against even higher level enemies. This makes him want to try a bunch of different fighting styles. His appreciation doesn't stop there, though, as Rakuro realizes that he has been playing this entire time without encountering a single bug. We then watch all the previous bugs he had to deal with, such as the hitbox bug, the clipping bug, and the infamous invisibility bug. He expresses excitement as he wasn't sure if he could enjoy a bug-free game after all this time, but is sure now that he can really have a good time with it. Rakuro heads out in search of another rabies bunny, but stops for a moment to completely destroy an ogre. He levels up again and decides that he should probably allocate his stat points. He wishes that the Vorpal bunny would spawn more often, but realizes that it must be a rare enemy. He still manages to kill 50 of them and get his sweet-looking dual swords. He also learns some new skills, but states that only one of them is worth using. Rakuro decides to move forward, though, since he's not going to gain any more levels with the scrub-tier monsters around there. He has strayed too far away from the starter town, but sees that he's close to another town aptly named Secondville. He makes his way there, but sees that a snake with ponytails is blocking a bridge. Rakuro is relieved to finally have a real challenge, and prepares to fight the stylish serpent. Don't let the poor hair design fool you. This beast is actually very powerful, as it is the area boss that is meant to be fought by a party. Rakuro takes a moment to think about all the attacks a snake usually has in games. He states that with an avatar that actually moves the way he wants it to, he doesn't need defenses to beat the boss, and he charges forward. He demands that the game give him something exciting, and we see that Rakuro is enjoying himself quite a bit. At the exit of a nearby town, several people look at something in amazement. Their jaws drop, and we see that it's someone wearing gigantic armor. This is the starting town of Firstia. The townspeople see that this person has high-level equipment and a crest from an achievement-focused clan. The clueless bunch wonder what someone like that is doing there, and we can tell by the voice that it's a girl. She checks all the names of the people in front of her and reminds herself that Rakuro gives all his characters the same name. He isn't there, though, which is strange since all starting players come to Firstia. Back in real life, we see that Rakuro's stalker knows no bounds, as it was her looking for him in the game. Back with our pigeon-faced hero, he begins his attack on the snake with hair so mesmerizing. It's as if it was stolen from an angel. Rakuro decides to watch its patterns and dodges a few of its attacks. The genius gamer determines that it's still a boss for beginners. Its movements are easy to read, and it won't have any insta-kill moves. The glass cannon realizes that he can beat this thing without taking a hit, since even one hit would kill him anyway. Rakuro masterfully dodges another attack, but his weapon shatters. He knew its durability was getting low, but can't believe it just broke on the first hit. He sees that Princess Ponytails has tough scales and decides that it's time to try out his sweet blood blades. Rakuro goes in for an attack while quipping that he's going to make snake fillets, but is surprised by some purple stuff spewed out by the ponytailed python. His first thought is that it might be poop, but a display reveals that it's poison, and he will take damage every 10 seconds. Featherface realizes that he might have underestimated the snake and its beautiful flowing head of hair. Our god of trash games tells the snake that he has beaten trash games with mechanics way cheaper than this, and a little poop flinging won't be enough to get him down. Rakuro thinks about how the poison deals him 1 damage every 10 seconds, which means he has about 4 minutes left, so he will need a reliable way to land criticals if he wants to beat it. Our Birdman uses his bird brain to determine that criticals in this game don't trigger at random. They seem to trigger when an attack is landed in an ideal way, or when an enemy is hit in their weak point. However, the snake isn't just fashionable. Its body is covered in super tough scales, so he concludes that its weak point has to be its head. The snake, super protective of its stylish hair, blocks his attack, making Rakuro realize that landing an attack on its head won't be easy. Instead, he decides to make his own weak point, and uses the move Screw Pierce to pierce its body. He continues to attack the hole he made, and this absolute god gamer states that the defensive properties of a wounded section change, allowing criticals to trigger there. The snake dramatically screams in pain with his beautiful head of hair, flowing through the wind, like it's in a shampoo commercial. Rakuro hacks away as his time is running out, but he has no clue how much HP the snake has, and isn't sure if he will make it. He is pushed back, and Rakuro now realizes that beating trash games online made him pretty cocky. When he initially entered this mass appeal game for casuals, this cocky peacock thought that he would be able to not hit things easily and wouldn't have to use recovery items. He was just being arrogant, though. and the snake consumed him. Rakuro isn't done yet and uses his flash counter move. Rakuro takes the upper hand by grabbing onto a lock of its hair that is so beautiful, it rivals that of a unicorn's head. One last piercing screw to its face causes its head to explode, and we say goodbye to the hair salon-loving serpent. Rakuro couldn't be happier as he levels up after defeating the old poop snake. His loot is good enough to fetch a good price, but he notices that his health is still dropping. He has no time to distribute his attribution points and just dumps it all into stamina and agility. The bird starts to fly back to town to buy an antidote, but realizes he doesn't know where the shops are and is certain he won't make it in time. He can't even register his respawn point since he doesn't know where the inns are yet, but he has no choice but to run as fast as he can like he's on a wild goose chase. At the town, we see that a guy named Yamamoto is ecstatic that after 3 whole months of trying, he finally got the girl he is crushing on to start playing SLF with him. Her name is Maya. This Romeo has maneuvered himself into the role of the advice-giving veteran and won't let this chance pass him by. Unfortunately, his intimate encounter is interrupted by our raging lunatic, and Maya thinks that it's a monster. Yamamoto points out that it has a name, so it must be a player. This crazy girl thinks she should kill it anyway, but Yamamoto points out that killing other players puts a skull in front of your name. The murderous psychopath considers it but decides against it, and they wonder if the bird got hit with the poison poop. Yamamoto tells them where the inn is but explains that the respawn point will only register once he gets in bed. At the inn, the receptionist is talking way too calmly as she points out all the amenities they have to offer, so a frantic hero rushes her. Rakuro finally makes it to his bed to register his respawn point, but the poison hasn't been cured and he dies. Rakuro returns to reality where he is disappointed to have died but glad he didn't lose any items. He decides that he will have to thank the guy that helped him, but for now just appreciates how awesome the game SLF is. Our god of trash games eventually arrives in Secondale, in search of necessities like a map and recovery items. The bird thinks he should buy a powerful main weapon to help him reach his goal of hitting the top player ranks, but soon realizes that perverts are staring at him for being half naked, and he makes the right decision by going to get clothes first. He just gets the cheapest clothes he can buy since it's only to keep people from looking at him weird, but then strangely decides that his bird head is less weird looking than a mask. At a weapon shop, Rakuro doesn't like what it has to offer, and the weapon store guy points out that Rakuro's bunny daggers are actually very rare. Rakuro becomes excited, however, when the man explains that he can make him weapons, but he would have to get the materials. Our little pigeon wastes no time and instantly heads to an area with plenty of ore. However, he gets his feathers all flustered as he just ends up mining stone after stone. He is frustrated since he has been swinging his pickaxe for at least 30 minutes, but only has 2 of the 6 pieces of ore he needs. As if he didn't have enough to worry about with all the mud and a heavy pickaxe, an annoying frog appears to do what frogs do. This poor frog messed with the wrong bird. This little frog swims in the mud like it thinks it's swimming in the Olympics, and it has its innocent little heart set in first place. Rakuro thought they could coexist since it wasn't that dangerous, but determined that the frog clearly wants to be turned into materials. His attack knocks the innocent little frog back, so he goes in to finish it off. He knows that the frog has slash resistance since his suit is made from its skin, and decides that he can only use bludgeon and piercing attacks. His axe is perfect for this, but his feathers get all ruffled again when he realizes that the marsh's mud slows down a player's movement significantly. The poor little frog meets its demise at the hand of our beak-faced hero, but it was so easy for him that it didn't even cheer him up. Rakuro notices that more new players have been showing up lately because of summer break and determines that he must beat everyone in the race for materials. Afterwards, Rakuro amazes the shop owner with all his ore. He is told that one of the pieces is really special and has 2 blades made from it. After some time they are ready, and he finds out that they are god-tier weapons. This blacksmith states that doing something called raising a weapon is very important. Raising turns out to just mean upgrading, but it's the term used by blacksmiths that take their job way too seriously and think of the weapons they make as their children. All Rakuro can think about is how the blacksmith is an NPC, but its speech and mannerisms are amazing. The NPC tells him not to leave town in armor, like he has while it's dark, since nocturnal animals are dangerous. Little does he know, our crazy bird friend is up to the challenge and plans to use those dangerous nocturnal animals to break in his new weapons and paw on some more levels. Back at the bridge, we see that the snake has risen from the ashes like a phoenix with its hair more dazzling than 1,000 suns. Unfortunately, it is met by a powerful attack from Rei, who continues her search for Rakuro. This stalker detective searched the entire beginner's area for him, but determined that he must have defeated the snake without stopping by town, and is now in second dill. She wonders if a new player could really accomplish such a thing, but is confident that if anyone could, it would be Rakuro. Elsewhere, our battle-loving birdie fights Golem from the Lord of the Rings, and he goes over everything he has learned. First, monster spawns change based on if it's day or night. Most nocturnal monsters are as aggressive and dangerous as the weapon seller said. That has helped him to make progress leveling up and to learn some new skills. However, this particular little beast seems a little too powerful. This one's movement and attacks are on a whole other level from the forest goblins. It's got lots of HP and incorporates feints into its fighting style like it's been doing it all its life, like it's fighting for Frodo's ring. Just then, the little goblin lets out a crazy-sounding battle cry and calls all its little goblin buddies. As if fighting one wasn't bad enough, now he has to face several, and he determines that he would have to run at full speed just to have a chance of getting away. However, just then Rakuro snaps himself out of that mentality and reminds himself that he is enjoying himself far too much to just run away. Rakuro may be a bird, but he is no chicken and takes on the challenge. As he defeats the annoying little goblins, Rakuro thinks about how he has just been having a lot of fun this entire time and telling himself that God-tier games are pretty neat. However, this game has much more to offer. It is in this very moment as a gigantic ferocious monster appears that Rakuro encounters the true Shangri-La frontier. Rakuro can't believe his eyes as he learns that it's a unique monster, and he braces himself for the fight of his life. Elsewhere, we get a glimpse into Rei's room as she is in the game. This crazy stalker is looking for Rakuro and questions Yamamoto, who claims to have seen Birdface. The bloodthirsty psycho he has a crush on wants to end Rei, because she apparently thinks everything is a monster. But Yamamoto reminds her not to end other players. Yamamoto explains that Big Bird went to Secondal after getting a face full of poison from the python. It was clearly him since no other player is crazy enough to wear a bird head while half naked, but Yamamoto points out that he could have changed his equipment by now. Rei is in disbelief at how Rakuro beat the ravenous python without visiting the first town. Rei leaves the two snitches with a parting gift called the coordinate teleporter and blasts off. It turns out that they didn't even know Rei, but Yamamoto can tell from the emblem on her cape that she is from a clan focused on a specific unique monster, like a Ganda Night Slayer. Unique monsters are a special class of monsters with both an individual name and a title. Most monsters, when beaten or captured, respond as a new individual after a set period of time passes, but for the unique monsters, there's only one of each in the entire world. Rumor says that there's 7 of them in SLF, but the spawn criteria for most of them are unknown. For each of these unique monsters, called colossi, lots of top players have formed clans focused on taking them down. These colossi are very rare, but the real issue is how abnormally strong they are. It's been an entire year since the game started, but even with a player base of over 30 million, not one person has managed to defeat a single unique monster. Back with Rakuro, we see that he has encountered one of these impossibly strong colossi. He learns that it's the unique monster like a Ganda Night Slayer. Rakuro thinks about how the little goblins he was fighting earlier were pretty tough, but this unique monster blew them away with just one attack. All he can do is stare at the ferocious beast, as he is certain that getting hit by just one of its attacks will end his life. The giant wolf thing isn't satisfied with just standing there though and initiates its attack. Rakuro saves himself for a moment with a block, but his attempt at a counterattack fails. Just seconds in, Rakuro is already feeling the effects of the tough battle, but he still decides to taunt it by telling the beast that unique monsters like him don't have much going for them. Deep down though, our glass cannon knows just how close he was to seeing an end screen. He is glad that he spent all night grinding, since if he hadn't learned Perfect Parry, he would be a virtual reality ghost right now. Perfect Parry allows him to avoid an enemy's physical attack if executed with exact timing. The beast continues its relentless attack, and Rakuro once again just narrowly avoids it. He knows that he needs to go all out just to give himself a chance at winning, and goes in for an attack of his own. Rakuro switches to his Vorpal choppers he got from the rabies rabbit and combines it with a movement ability to land a critical strike. The beast is hardly affected and continues to bombard Rakuro with attacks. The fight pauses for a moment just as the Night Slayer disappears. It reappears to land a few more attacks only to disappear again moments later when the moon is covered by clouds. It sneaks up on him once more, but Rakuro shows that he can more than handle his own against it. The monster seems to be teleporting as it attacks Rakuro from behind. But Rakuro shows his skill as a gamer when he times his parry perfectly to just barely save his glass cannon self from getting blown up. The beast reappears before Rakuro, but he's clearly having fun as he lets out a chuckle. The fight continues as the beast continues to disappear and reappear. Rakuro manages to land another strike, but exclaims that its pelt is even tougher than the ponytailed python's scales. Rakuro has been wailing on the thing for over 5 minutes without taking a hit, but the unique monster is just too tough. Rakuro has landed hundreds of critical strikes, but he isn't even sure if he's doing any damage. His Vorpal choppers, which started out close to mint condition, are already falling apart. Rakuro is certain that if he doesn't find a softer spot to land a hit on, his weapons are going to fall apart. He acknowledges that this beast is way out of the league of what he's able to fight at this stage, but that's exactly the way he likes it. And that's what makes Shangri-La Frontier a god-tier game. Our intense protagonist cannot be having a better time as he describes the spine-tingling intensity that makes him feel like he's on fire. As he lands several more critical strikes, he states that it's not possible to enjoy a game more. He is a gamer who has made it through a countless number of trash games filled with bugs and garbage balance. Since he knows that this beast doesn't have a bugged-out hitbox like in the other games, there's no chance he will give up now. Rakuro lands yet another powerful attack, but this one doesn't do much either. He gets pushed back outside of the beast's range, but it lets out a loud roar that paralyzes Rakuro. The moon is hidden again, allowing the beast to disappear, and Rakuro seconds later is shocked to see that his legs are gone. Rakuro has no clue what just happened, but acknowledges that getting hit by reality really hurts. As he lies there in defeat, he points out that harsh reality. He is not going to suddenly learn an awesome new skill or get saved by a run-in from some mysterious high-level player. Nothing cinematic like that is going to happen. He realizes that that isn't completely true, as somehow after a hit like that, he still has 1 health point left, and that has to be a miracle. He compliments the unique monster for being absurdly strong, but points out that that absurdity was intentionally coded into him. The beast is exactly as strong as its creators wanted it to be. This means that it's beatable absurdity. It's at this very moment that Rakuro has made his decision. He no longer cares about the game's final boss or even the story. It might not be at this moment, but someday he vows that he will beat the unique monster. Rakuro speaks directly to Lichigan the Night Slayer and tells it to make sure that no one else beats it before he does. The ferocious monster finishes him off, and we see that a curse called Lichigan's Mark has been applied. Moments later, Rakuro respawns back in Secondil and finds out that this curse doesn't allow equipment to be equipped to the body part afflicted by the curse. A quick check of his body reveals that he's almost completely covered in the Lichigan's Mark, meaning he cannot equip stuff to his torso and legs. Rakuro vents his frustrations for a moment as he condemns the disappearing wolf for doing this to him. This proves to be the curse that just keeps on giving, as there is plenty more. Monsters of a lower level than the afflicted character will flee. Conversations with NPCs will be affected by the presence of Lichigan's Mark, and the afflicted body part gains resistance to magic effects. The only way the curse can be removed is through the prayers of a saint or the defeat of the curse's caster. Because of all this bad news, Rakuro decides to get some fresh air before he ends himself. There he lets out a loud scream as he exclaims that this is the kind of broken curse that happens in trash games. As people wonder what the half-naked weirdo is doing, Rakuro calms himself. He then reminds himself of the 3 principles he learned from all the trash games: patient mind, unbreakable spirit, and a cool-headed judgment. A quick check of his stats actually reveals that players rack up a lot of experience from just fighting a unique monster, which means he leveled up quite a bit, buffed up his skills, and got lots of stat points to allocate. After he allocates his points, he quickly comes to the realization that he made himself a glass cannon who will die in 1 hit. He had no choice though, since he can't even use 2 out of 4 of his armor slots. Spending points on vitality is like peeing in the ocean, and the same goes for his HP. Not only that, but his best stat is 65 in luck. He thinks that is probably why he was just able to survive for a moment with just that 1 horsepower. He prays that his luck has to be good for something, and hopes that it's okay to turn to luck for help. Just then, a very well-dressed bunny falls on his head. It looks a bit different than bunnies he's seen before, and he wonders if this game allows monsters to spawn in towns. The dapper little furball takes off, so Rakuro goes after it. He is convinced that by the way it is dressed, he will get a rare item if he catches it. Just when it seems like he is about to catch the little guy, it creates a door, and the trick gives our protagonist a smug look as he gets away. Rakuro reads a message on the door that says it's a unique scenario, an invitation from Rabatuza. Rakuro remembers reading about this on the game guide site and explains that SLF has a sweeping main story about the exploration of the world, but it's also got a huge number of side quests. One subset of these is called unique scenarios, mystery scenarios, whose unlock times, locations, contents, and flags aren't publicly known. So the equipment, skills, and spells you can acquire in these unique scenarios are said to all be top class. Rakuro opens the door and thinks about how it's not unusual to see clans searching desperately to find these unique scenarios. He lets out a laugh since encountering one this early in his playthrough is amazing. He determines that it must be the result of dumping his stat points into luck, and promises not to let this chance slip away. Well, after he enters the door though, we see that the level requirement is 80, and Rakuro is only level 28. Once inside, he is shocked to find that it's a world full of bunnies and their beloved carrots. He fears he might have walked into a monster's lair, and is welcomed by the little jerk that taunted him into coming. This bunny wanted to meet Rakuro badly, and explains that all of Rabbituza is abuzz about him. This is because despite his great personal weakness, Rakuro had the courage to attempt the Night Slayer all on his own, and because he had the skills to continue striking perfect deadly blows without taking a single hit. To them, Rakuro is the embodiment of the Vorpal rabbit's soul. Rakuro is freaked out by the little guy's enthusiasm, and the bunny says he wants to be just like Rakuro. Our humble heroes are quick to point out that he barely left a scratch on the unique monster, but the bunny explains that's only because it's so powerful. He calls it the Night Emperor, and explains that it's a colossus, capable of gobbling down wyverns like a midday snack. The fact that Rakuro's even there speaking to him now suggests Rakuro's under the divinity's protection. What's even more amazing about this suited furball is that the marks covering Rakuro's body prove that the Night Emperor regards him not as mere prey, but as a fellow being. Rakuro can't help but wonder if something's wrong with the rabbit's brain, and remembers that one of the traits of the mark was that conversations with NPCs would be affected. The bunny explains that his bunny boss would like to meet him, but our skeptical birdman wonders if this is some kind of revenge trap for all the bunny's lives he's ended. The bunny kind of just ignores his question and introduces himself as Emule. Emule eventually answers, and assures Rakuro that his boss is far above petty matters like revenge. At Rabbituza Palace, our new friend explains that while many humans visit Rabbituza on a regular basis, Rakuro will be the first to enter the palace. This is quite shocking, but Rakuro becomes excited as this must mean that this is a unique scenario that only he knows about. Rakuro explains that he was pretty worried after getting all marked up by that unique dog, but it looks like his luck is already turning around. Emule takes him to his father boss, and Rakuro is shocked by the powerful presence of this guy. He acknowledges Rakuro as the guy that got beat up and peed on by the unique monster that he calls a puppy. He explains that humans lose their Vorpal souls so quickly, so he assumed that they were all hopeless. However, he has now determined that one of them has promised and shocks Rakuro when he asks for some of his time. This gigantic rabbit introduces himself as the rabbit boss of Rabbituza named Vaiseshe. Back at the game shop, Amain catches Ray, the stalker extraordinaire, on the prowl for her not-so-secret crush Rakuro. Ray tries to deny it, but the game shop owner isn't stupid and explains that it's summer vacation, so he's probably in Shangri-La Frontier. Ray admits that she hasn't been able to find her prey in-game because she skipped the first tutorial city entirely. Amain laughs as charting his own course is classic Rakuro and a typical trash game fanatic move. She explains that Rakuro will do things normal players won't do and run into all kinds of outrageous, unique scenarios. Amain encourages the little stalker to step up her stalking game, but surprises her when she tells Ray to admit her feelings to him. In the next scene, we meet Rumi Hizotomi as she's about to begin her storyline, but she leaves and we don't see her again. Meanwhile, Rakuro is reading about the trigger conditions for the Tour of Rabbituza unique scenario. He learns that if you defeat a monster of a higher level than you with Vorpal weapons equipped, a special Vorpal bunny will appear in any town and invite you to Rabbituza. Once you arrive, if you defeat the Ligonian Python, a monster terrorizing their city, you'll learn the Enchant Vorpal spell. The beginning part was right, but Rakuro explains that the rest of his unique scenario that happened the day before was nothing like that. He definitely didn't end up wrestling any pythons. Instead, it was the intimidating Yakuza boss-looking bunny, the sort of cuddly terror you would expect if the mob started recruiting him petting zoos. A look-back shows that Vaiseshe complimented Rakuro on his fight against the puppy. He admires Rakuro's Vorpal soul, but Rakuro can't help but be intimidated and wonders what in the world is a Vorpal soul. The Yakuza bunny then makes him an offer he can't refuse, the offer to get him up to snuff. Rakuro's pretty confused at first, but then realizes that this must be a training quest and unique scenario training could yield amazing buffs. He quickly accepts the offer, but almost gets himself whacked when he calls Vaiseshe anarchy, as it made him very angry. Rakuro explains that it was just a little joke, but the giant Bugs Bunny on steroids doesn't say a word. Luckily for Rakuro, Vaiseshe has a sense of humor as he doesn't call a hit on him, and lets out a big laugh instead. He acknowledges Rakuro as his underling and asks him to call him Vash. This is a privilege only given to those with potential, and Rakuro accepts as he thinks about how he is glad that the Yakuza bunny didn't have him swimming with the fishes. Vash tells the more than excited Emule that he will leave Rakuro in his hands, which of course the weird little bunny loves, and he promises to work super hard. Emule is excited to take Sunraku-san on a tour of the palace, but Rakuro explains that he needs a break after a long playing session. But in his head, he thinks about how he also wants to look up more about unique scenarios and unique monsters. Rakuro's glad to hear that he can register his respawn point there, and Emule offers to take care of it. Vash remembers that he forgot one thing and puts a Vorpal Soul collar on Rakuro. Rakuro is shocked to find that the collar gains 2.5 times the stat points when leveling up, but will only receive half the experience. He instantly tries to take it off, but Vash explains that it's no use. He won't allow Rakuro to take it off since extraordinary hardship is necessary for the weak to grow strong. He then reminds Rakuro to never forget the Vorpal Soul. The goofy little bunny tells him that it looks great on him, but Rakuro just can't believe that he has been saddled with another restriction. Back to the present, Rakuro acknowledges that even if it does have his experience, getting 2.5 times the stat points is a pretty big upside. It might even be a broken cheat code. No one on the forum seems to know about Vicehash or Emule, let alone the Vorpal Soul collar. No one's even found a unique scenario where you enter the Palace of Rabbituza. Rakuro then gets super hyped as he realizes how amazing it is to have found a unique scenario only he knows about. Unfortunately, he has an appointment with someone named Oikatsu and loads up a game he hasn't logged into forever. It's called Berserk Online Passion, or as some people call it, Burp. It's a fighting game Rakuro once got deeply into, and naturally this means that it's a trash game. Its player base has waned to less than 100 sign-ins per day, leaving many to wonder why the server is still running. This means that most of those who remain playing the game know each other. They are all of a single kind, trash game enthusiasts. Rakuro meets with Katsu and asks for the rules of the fight. The fight begins though as Katsu does his best impression of Luffy without a straw hat and reminds Rakuro that anything goes. Katsu shows him his new move he worked out while Rakuro was focused on Folia Online that he calls NSFW Tentacle Attack. Rakuro is surprised to see that Tatsu developed a new glitch, and wonders how a madman like him got to be a pro gamer. Katsu is shocked since he is using a delay, but Rakuro is still somehow managing to block his attack. Katsu calls Rakuro the real madman for having such fast reaction speed, and Rakuro points out that his quick draw fist is the ultimate fighting style. He explains that as long as he has 12 frames, he can even counter boss instant kill attacks unscathed. The two continue their fight that looks like something right out of One Piece, and people around begin to take notice. Though Burp is considered a trash game, their fight perfectly demonstrates the reason for Burp's niche appeal. And that is that any bug goes. Their Gatling gun punching continues, and Rakuro celebrates when he breaks off one of Katsu's fists. Unfortunately, this ends up being bad for him as that fist ends up ending the fight. Rakuro can't believe that the after-image fist textures were part of the hitbox, and he has announced a loser. Still, Rakuro thanks Katsu as he has only been fighting NPCs. Recently and needed a good PvP. Katsu hoped that Rakuro was telling a bad joke when he learned that he was playing SLF, but Rakuro takes no shame in admitting that he is actually really into it. His little friend still doesn't understand, so Rakuro explains that SLF has crazy strong monsters called the Seven Colossi. They are so rare that the entire player base has only managed to get the names of 4 of them. No one has ever beaten a single one of them since the game started. Rakuro reveals that he fought one of these beasts, and it wasted him. With that, Katsu is convinced, and he decides that he might have to give SLF a try. Hearing Rakuro talk about it has piqued his interest, and he admits that none of his IRL friends play Burp anyway. That is in all, as a certain person also plays SLF, and Katsu sent this person a message to tell them that Rakuro was playing it too. Rakuro has no clue who this person is, but we see that it's some purple-haired girl. This chick is fighting a bunch of guys when she received the message and states that she always thought Rakuro had some kind of condition where he would die if he ever stopped playing trash games. She finishes up all her opponents, and we see that she has the player kill badge for ending all those real players. She seems glad that Rakuro is playing SLF and decides that she will have to, oh, so gently guide him through it. Rakuro returns to Secondil and thinks about how handy Emule is for being able to use the teleport gate. He feels pretty good, and wonders if coming from playing Burp is the reason that his SLF avatar is so easy to move in. Emule wonders why Rakuro wanted to leave so soon, since there is so much to do in Rabbituza. Rakuro explains that while he really wants to explore Rabbituza, getting to 3rd Rima before the crowds start pouring in is more important. There has been a huge uptick in players since summer break started. The forums report that the Star Town Firstia is packed to the gills with new players. Secondale won't be far behind, which means there are going to be loggyms at facilities and fights over monsters and mining spots. Also, 3rd Rima is a pretty big city, so if he's going to go all out in the Rabbituza unique scenario, then he would like to do it from a big city with plenty of breathing room. Emil completely agrees, but Rakuro is shocked to hear that Emil hilariously didn't understand a single thing. Emil is still more than glad to help, and Rakuro is shocked to find that he can add NPCs in his party. Emil explains that Rakuro can't reach Rabbituza or the palace without him, but Rakuro thought that the little furry NPC would just be tagging along. Rakuro accepts Emil's party request and finds that the little bunny has higher stats than he does. He isn't too concerned about it, though, since he is confident that he will pass Emil in no time. Rakuro is pretty sure that the Lycagon mark is the trigger for that unique scenario and wonders if Emil is the game's way of making up for it. The two prepare to head out, but are stopped by 2 girls who think that the talking little bunny is adorable. They want to know if they can get it as a pet too, but are shocked to realize that Rakuro is a half-naked bird pervert. Rakuro realizes that he was so distracted that he didn't stop to think about how Emil is an NPC attached to a never-before-seen unique scenario. Since he has it all to himself for now, he would like to keep it a secret at least until he can clear it. The dumb little bunny introduces himself and tries to chat it up with the ladies. However, Rakuro stops him and yells out that it was just his ventriloquism act as he runs away. Unfortunately for him, one of the nosy girls takes a picture of them and decides that they will have to ask the forums where to get one of the talking bunnies. The two get away from all the crowds, and Emil admits to not being the high-level athlete he looks like, as he is not so well suited for all the running around. Emil eagerly awaits their next task, and Rakuro explains that he wants to confirm something. He wants to test a part of his curse that states that monsters of a lower level than the afflicted character will flee. Luckily for them, a lower-leveled monster appears to attack them, and it runs away as soon as it sees the curse. This is perfect as Rakuro chases after it like some kind of bird-cheetah hybrid. Our brilliant gamer doesn't just pursue it mindlessly, though, as he has a plan to chase it into an obstacle. With perfect timing, Rakuro throws his weapon as soon as it changes direction. With it stopped, Rakuro attacks it with the fastest speed he can muster. Rakuro points out that he received an attack bonus from inertia, a law of physics taken for granted in the real world, and very few games actually try to replicate it. He admires how this game models reality as close as it can, and Emil arrives to celebrate with intense energy as always. He admires Rakuro's fighting skills as he could hardly tell which one was the monster. With Rakuro's test complete, he has decided what needs to be done now. The plan is to ignore all the scrubs and head straight to the area boss. Emil marvels at the plan's simplicity, and the two take off excited to take on whatever the future holds. Unfortunately, just seconds later, we see that Rakuro is extremely frustrated. They have arrived at the area where the boss should be, but there's only swamp as far as the eye can see. The little rabbit is just worried about his sweet-looking clothes, and Rakuro thinks about what Emil told him on the way there. Emil explained that the area boss is a monster named Mud Digger. It rockets out of the ground to attack, so it's crucial to find a way to hold it in place. Rakuro realizes that he has to fight this Mud Digger in a swamp, and that means he might be in big trouble. Just then, Emil senses the beast, and Rakuro has Emil get on his shoulder. It's incredibly difficult to move in the swamp, so they just barely manage to move out of the way as a giant monster emerges. We learn that a characteristic of Shangri-La Frontiers is that its swamp terrain forces a walking state. This means that one leg always remains trapped in the marsh until the other foot reaches the bottom. This ferocious beast is clearly very powerful, as the recommended party size for fighting it is 4. Rakuro realizes that he might have made a huge mistake, as this is the worst matchup possible. The ferocious beast is strangely able to dive into the shallow swamp, which is only possible because of game logic, and Emil freaks out fearing that they will be skinned alive. However, Rakuro smoothly uses his slide move to narrowly avoid death. He acknowledges that figuring out how to use the skills that evolved after fighting the Lycagon is the key to this battle. His evolution of the move Perfect Parry is the repel counter, which allows him to instantly counter-attack after timing his parry perfectly. Emil is impressed, but Rakuro isn't satisfied since he is pretty much just evading damage. Both skills he just used have 10-second recast times, and he has no other way to avoid damage in the meantime. The beast gives him no breaks, but luckily his little bunny friend comes in clutch with an impressive attack. Emil explains that it was just a bit of magic, and Rakuro realizes that he has been so focused on soloing this game that he completely forgot he had a partner this time. Rakuro knows he can't waste this opportunity, so he uses an ability that grants a temporary bonus to attack power and agility. Unfortunately, trying to move quickly in the swamp sucks big time. The beast recovers, but this gives Rakuro the opportunity to use the evolution of his screw pierce attack called Spiral Edge. Another ability gets them in a more advantageous position, and Rakuro does a balancing act only possible because of his experience in trash games that have terrible platforming. He has his little bunny friend prepare an attack and dares the ferocious beast to eat him. It tries to, but 10 seconds have passed already, and he uses a repel counter to avoid it. Emil follows that up with a powerful attack, and we see just how much of a glass cannon Rakuro is, as a tiny bit of fall damage takes a large portion of his health. Rakuro praises his furry teammate, but she is just concerned about her sweet threads. Rakuro is confident that the beast must be pretty hurt, but he is shocked when it's nowhere to be found. Just then the ground begins to shake, and Rakuro feels like his feet are being sucked down. They realize that the shark whale thing is preparing to rocket out of the ground for an attack, and Rakuro doesn't even hesitate to save his little friend. Rakuro is surprised to have been thrown into the air since it wasn't an insta-kill attack, and in fact barely did any damage. We learn that the Mud Digger is most noteworthy for its special move set that activates after its HP reaches a certain threshold. After holding a player in place with the vibrating swamp, it randomly rams one of them in the air with its nose. If a player challenges it alone, not only will it hit them with this attack every single time as long as they remain in the swamp, but it will shave down all their HP through fall damage, hence its nickname the Solo Killer. Rakuro realizes this and hates the person who came up with it since player skills are not even a factor. He considers having Emil hit him from the side, but knows that will just blow him up. Rakuro prepares for his inevitable death and explains that he has never been able to get used to falling deaths in VR games. Luckily for him, our little fur hero is no quitter, and she has an unrivaled Vorpal spirit. She uses a magic scroll to teleport Rakuro, but instead of getting to safety, she accidentally puts him back in the air. We learn that there is an attack skill called Meteor Fall that utilizes downward energy. Rakuro had picked up a ton of downward momentum from his initial free fall and built up a lot of energy. Emil's accidental teleportation actually put him just above the beast and allowed Rakuro to gain even more energy. So a fall that would have resulted in player death instead is now a risky attack. This is not an actual meteor fall, but a mistake meteor fall. The creature instantly blows up into smithereens, and Rakuro is in complete disbelief to see that he actually survived. He can't even digest all the things that just happened, so he just compliments Emil for her clutchness. Rakuro acknowledges how tough the fight was, comparing it to when he fought the Lycagon, but this time they were the survivors. Afterward, Emil is shocked to see Birdhead shove a bunch of healing herbs down his throat, and Rakuro points out that it's the only way anything can reach his mouth because of his giant beak. Rakuro can only think about how Emil was way stronger than he expected. She ended up carrying him, so he feels pretty bad for being so cocky before. Emil can only think about how Rakuro will be staying in Rabbituza full-time once they reach the big city. The only problem is that Emil, if seen, will draw a lot of attention like last time, and they might even get jumped. They need to think of a way to hide her, so our little furball determines that she must use something she hasn't in a long time. She reveals her mysterious Vorpal bracelet, the secret treasure of the Vorpal bunnies. The secretive little bunny asks her human counterpart to keep it a secret, and shockingly transforms into a human. Rakuro is speechless, and is upset as he begins to realize that Japan's so-called flagship God-tier game is starting to look like some kind of harem game with a bunny girl. The transformation is pretty exhausting for the little rabbit though, so she can only hold it for 4 or 5 minutes at a time in her current state. Her transformation will work just fine to hide her, but it could bring different attention when people see a poor girl dragging around a half-naked birdman. They finally arrive at Thirdrama, where Emil points out how unimpressed Rakuro seems. Beakface proudly points out that he has seen quite a few places in his time, and she is amazed by how well-traveled he is. Emil transforms, but Rakuro is proven right about him being the attention-getter when some guards stop them to ask why he is half-naked. They are also pretty curious about his body being covered in scars, but Emil comes to Rakuro's defense. She states that Rakuro has a past that will bring immense sorrow to all those who hear it. Emil tells the story of his dangerous journey in the most dramatic way possible, a story highlighting the curse Rakuro has on his body and his journey to remove it. Emil gets even more intense as she explains that this is only the first chapter in his story. The second chapter will have him transform into a super warrior. This chick is way too intense for the guards, and they just allow them in. Out of the entire crowd that has gathered to watch Emil's theatrics, Rakuro notices someone giving him a look, and it's far different than the normal judgmental look he usually gets for being a half-naked bird face. Before they can enter the city, a girl urgently stops Rakuro as she recognizes him. Rakuro has no clue who this frantic girl is, but we see what happened after those girls in Secondale took their picture. The girls posted the picture on a forum and asked if anyone knew how to befriend the adorable bunny. The post spread rapidly as people were shocked to hear that a monster could talk, and almost equally shocked to see a half-naked birdman. The silvered-haired girl was more shocked than anyone. She was certain that the game only allowed players to tame dogs and cats, and determined that the bird must be cheating. As people questioned the ethics behind posting a picture of someone without their consent, the silver-haired girl begins her mission to find the pigeon man. Other people were paying more attention to Rakuro in the picture. Many have not seen scars like his, especially since nothing like them exists in the character maker. Someone on the forums remembers that it's a curse that also serves as proof that the player has been acknowledged by the Night Emperor. This is only known though because some NPC mentioned it. Players are stunned to realize that this means Rakuro, who they know as Sunraku, his in-game name, has encountered the Lycagon. Some players know that the Lycagon is a random encounter, so it is possible for a beginner to run into it, but no one can figure out how this Sunraku guy managed to get acknowledged by it. A player named Orsalot responds on the forums saying that he could spawn kill Sunraku until he tells him how to do it. Other players think about how dangerous this Orsalot guy is, as he is the esteemed leader of Ashura Kai, a clan infamous for being filled with player killers. Orsalot has his eyes set on Sunraku, so other players wonder if the Birdman will be okay. People discuss on the forums how if you play or kill too much and you get killed by a player or an NPC, all your items are lost, including stored ones. On top of that, the bounty gets paid from the player killer's own cash, so it's a pretty brutal system. One red-headed lady is particularly intrigued by Sunraku and leaves a message on the forums with the hopes of him reading it. She tells him to speak to any player wearing the emblem of a wolf and a sword, as she would love to meet and talk with him. She expresses sorrow for him having so much of his information leaked, but explains that her Saigar clan can help protect him. Other players can see that several clans are showing interest in the now famous Sunraku and point out how he is being treated like an event boss. The crazy silver-haired girl is the first to find him though, and she just wants to know how to tame a Vorpal bunny. When news of him has spread rapidly, this is Rakuro's first time hearing about it. He realizes it must have been from Secondale, but there's no way he's spilling the beans on the Vorpal bunny unique scenario. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by a surprise attack. The attacker says that it's not nice to keep things to himself and everyone should share in the fun. This girl shocks Rakuro when she calls him Revolutionary Knight Sunraku-kun. Rakuro seems to know her as he states that the Great Pencil Knight has finally shown her face. This girl doesn't like how he is talking to a self-proclaimed beauty like herself, and explains to him that in this game she is not Pencil Knight. She shockingly removes her mask and tells him to refer to her as Arthur Pencilgon. Rakuro is stunned to see that she is not only level 99, but she also has the skull badge for being a player killer. Rakuro refers to this person as his friend in Trash Gamerhood. A flashback shows some guys robbing a shop in a game called Unite Rounds. These fools thought they were scot-free, but Rakuro found them and robbed the robbers. The players affectionately call this trash game a post-apocalyptic looting simulator. The game was originally meant to simulate a kingdom on the verge of collapse, with players assuming the role of knights who protect it from attacking monsters. A COOPMO VR game. However, because of truly garbage game design that prioritized faithfulness to the concept, the drop rates were unreasonably low. Only a few players would ever dare to play this game the right way. Even the beginner's quest required 12 hours of combing through open fields to complete. In the player's eyes, this only left them with one option: steal what they need. Gamers weren't willing to spend hours picking through grass for low-level items when they could just raid an NPC store or steal them from a player who did. That eventually proved to be the winning move in Unite Rounds. In an environment where outrage was everywhere and every person you saw was an enemy, a lone figure arose, fueled by violence, to take control of the kingdom. And that person was the Great Pencil Knight. One day, Rakuro was looting corpses, and Katsu tried to point out that the game was supposed to be about defending the kingdom from monsters. However, Rakuro explained that the game is now really about defeating the big bad Pencil Knight. Pencil Knight was nothing like the final boss built into the game's story. She would intentionally abuse players who she didn't allow into her ranks and instigate her victims to prevent them from giving up on the game. At this time, the game of Unite Rounds was completely at the mercy of one player, the one known as the Dystopian Empress. Rakuro and Katsu plan to assassinate her, and she is shocked to see them and realize that a rebel army was used as a distraction. Our boys are pretty confident to have gotten this far, and tell her that she should have set some more effective traps. The ones she set were so easy that they broke them on the first try. This is their first time meeting, but the Empress is impressed and plans to remember their names. The Pencil Knight is pretty annoyed by Rakuro's smirk, and she wonders if they can really defeat her to become the Revolutionary Knight. Back to the present, Rakuro thinks about how in Unite Rounds, they fought each other to a draw, with both of them dying in the end. However, in this game, there is a huge level gap between them. Pencilgon instantly initiates the fight and tells Rakuro that she took the penalty and came all the way from Fetisha to play or kill him, so he shouldn't be ashamed if he feels like crying because of how flattered he is. Pencilgon is not only a good trash talker, she is a dangerous fighter also, as Rakuro must block daggers that he predicts are poisonous. She knows that Rakuro just beat the Mud Digger and assumes that he's around level 30, so she compliments him on his impressive dodging skills. However, Rakuro credits the God-tier game for making all his moves come nice and smooth. The crazy silver-haired girl is shocked while watching the fight when she realizes that Pencilgon is second in command of that one-player killer clan, Ashurakai. She is known as the Giant Killer. Pencilgon explains that she got the nickname from constantly focusing on ambushing higher-level players. Unfortunately, the devs nerfed her ruthless strategy, so it's been a lot harder for her recently. Rakuro is quick to point out how she was the giant in the last game, and the two have a good laugh about the irony. The lighthearted moment doesn't last long, though, as Pencilgon continues attacking and calls our bird-headed hero a bird brain. Emil realizes something while watching but doesn't say anything and just freaks out in the background. As Pencilgon continues her relentless attack, she reveals that she didn't just find him for personal reasons. The leader of her clan, Ashurakai, asks her to deliver a message. The leader warns Rakuro to make the information of the unique scenario public. Otherwise, he will have a target on his back until he does. Our boy does not like being threatened. He thinks this leader of hers sounds like a dummy, and Pencilgon actually agrees. Rakuro does his best to fight back, but he knows that there's far too much of a gap in their levels and equipment. However, he has realized something. Rakuro points out that it seems like Pencilgon is trying pretty hard to keep him away from the gate. He is also certain that she timed that first attack of hers to prevent him from entering the city. He determines that it must be hard for a player killer to do their thing in a highly populated town, and she reveals that she would certainly prefer to avoid it. None of the talking really matters to her, though, since she is certain that he won't be making it to the gate alive anyway. Just then we see what Emil is freaking out about this whole time as her bunny tail reappears, and she can't hold it in any longer. She will soon transform back to a Vorpal bunny, but she has no way of telling Rakuro without anyone finding out. The chaos is mounting as the crazy silver-haired girl decides to ask Rakuro's companion about how to get the Vorpal bunny pet. She is surprised to see that Emil is wearing bunny accessories, but even more shocked when Emil transforms into the very bunny she had been desperately searching for like a maniac. Rakuro notices and points out how this is the worst possible moment for this to happen. Pencilgon refuses to be ignored, but is shocked when Rakuro uses his repel counter move. He knocks her back with rage since he knows that she has been holding back and calls Emil to his side. Our boy catches his little bunny companion in silver hair, wishes she could at least get a selfie with the little furball. Rakuro explains that he will think about it if he survives his plan and makes a mad dash towards the gate. Pencilgon is certain that Rakuro has no chance in beating her in a foot race, but is shocked when Silverhair stops her. Silverhair explains that she couldn't care less about Birdface, but if Pencilgon's going to put the sweet little bunny in danger, then she will slay Pencilgon in a heartbeat. Rakuro couldn't be happier, as this is what he hoped would happen. He realized that the girl named Animalia was obsessed with his furry companion, and he knew she would put herself in harm's way for her. He praises Emil for being a great mascot, as now all he has to do is get into town. Emil will make him a teleport gate to Rabatuza, and no one should be able to track him there. Rakuro's plan runs into a huge problem, though, as Pencilgon explains that she never said she came there alone. Rakuro is met by a group of tough-looking players from Pencilgon's clan. They all hate the idea of having to PK a lower-level player, but they must do it as they fear getting the player killed themselves by Pencilgon if they don't. Pencilgon realizes that Animalia is the keeper of SFCOO, a monster documenter clan with no interest in other players, and she thanks Rakuro for giving her this opportunity. Rakuro isn't even listening though, as he has his hands full trying to keep from being ended by the group. Animalia shows that she isn't just some crazy animal lover and unleashes a powerful spell. Unfortunately, Pencilgon consumes the attack and fires it right back at Animalia. Pencilgon is pretty impressed by all the status debuffs Animalia has acquired, and Animalia is shocked because Pencilgon was able to reflect all the curses in her attack. Pencilgon reveals the amazing item that allowed her to do this, the Karmic Straw Doll. Pencilgon knows she would have been in big trouble without it and crushes the thing. The item, when crushed, sends all curses applied to the player back at their caster, so the cold-blooded Pencilgon assures Animalia that she will stick around to watch her die of her own poison. Rakuro is doing his best to stay alive against opponents who outnumber him, are a higher level than him, and have far better equipment than him. He analyzes them to determine that his best target is the jerk who uses a slow-moving longsword, since Rakuro doesn't even need skills to dodge his attacks. The real problem is how he will do damage to the high-level players decked out in top-tier armor. Things are looking pretty bad, but luckily someone has arrived to absolutely destroy one of the attackers with a single blow. Every one of the attackers is shocked as they realize that this was the unparalleled firepower of the famous attack master. Rakuro has no clue who this person is, but can't believe another person has arrived with such a dangerous-sounding nickname. However, we know that this giant armored knight is actually Rakuro's stalker, Rei, and she is glad to have finally found the apple of her eye. A flashback shows how upset Rei was after not being able to find Rakuro no matter how hard she looked, and she thought about how Amain told her to confess her feelings to him. She thought about how Rakuro always played games that were so unusual and difficult. They were always too hard for her to play, so she could never find a game that she could play with him. However, that all changed with SLF. Rakuro was finally playing it, so she refused to let her opportunity get away. When she returned to the game, she found that a message was waiting for her. It was another member of her guild, Saiger, that is also her sister. The message revealed Rakuro's location and asked Rei to get into contact with him. This was Rei's first real chance to find him, so she wasted no time in rushing to him. The message also revealed that there were a number of clans already arranging to make contact with him, and the dangerous Ashura Kai was among them. Rei saw him deep in battle and realized that it was a great opportunity that she would never have again. If she could save him from the Peekers, she would have a natural in to talk to him. This drove her more than anything because she's crushing on him pretty hard and knew that this could someday lead to them talking in real life. That is when she made her explosive entrance, and Pencilgon could instantly tell that things were getting intense. Pencilgon knew all along that the Peekers from her clan would have a tough time against Rakuro. However, fighting him in SLF has made something even more clear to her. The skills he's built up playing terrible games in all genres are more valuable than unique items and high-level stats. And that's a huge asset in Shangri-La Frontier. She has also heard that Oikatsu is playing SLF as well, so with Rakuro, some secret project of hers is looking more possible. Pencilgon is then shocked when she realizes that the person that has joined the fight is Saiger 100. Somehow Rakuro first lured in the zookeeper, and now the attack master. Pencilgon is incredibly happy to have come, but Animalia isn't done just yet, as she points out that she hit Pencilgon with 5 spells. She explains that the doll Pencilgon used tops out at reflecting 5 debuffs, and she wonders if Pencilgon has a counter for her next attack. A look into the past shows Rei stalking Rakuro so hard that she runs into a pole. He was always smiling and enjoying himself, so that is why she started thinking about him. She started looking for him, and eventually developed elite-level stalking skills. She tried talking to him on several occasions, but she was always too shy. Back to the present, Rei won't let her opportunity pass her by, so she comes to Rakuro's rescue. Rakuro is instantly suspicious of this giant knight, and he assumes that they are after the unique scenario just like everyone else. He knows that he needs to think of a way out, and luckily for him, it looks like Animalia is preparing to do something. Animalia's final attack requires the mastery skill and single-digit HP. This chick is just another crazy person in this anime, as she explains that her next attack is a murder-suicide curse that destroys her opponent and herself. Pencilgon has already used her doll, and has no way to debuff the spell, so the two of them are eliminated. The attack causes a massive eruption of light, shocking everyone. But this is Rakuro's chance. He tells his furry little friend to prepare a gate for them, and apologizes to the knight for using its head as a launch pad. Birdface runs as fast as he can, and the enemy group wants to stop him from reaching the city since it's filled with bounty hunters. Unfortunately for them, Rei is too powerful and knocks them back. Rakuro still doesn't trust the giant knight, but promises to remember their name, Saiger 100. The Ashura Kai members are furious, but Rei is completely distracted. She can't believe that Rakuro actually talked to her, and his apology replays over and over again in her head. The Ashura Kai guys see this as an opportunity to earn some fame and make an attempt to attack the attack master. Unfortunately for them, she is furious because they were the reason she couldn't talk to Rakuro anymore. The Ashura Kai members prepare to run away, but Rei doesn't let them as she still has a lot of anger to take out on them. We then see that Rakuro and Emule have finally made it back to the inn inside of Rabbituza. Emule ran out of magic from using her transformation earlier, but luckily our boy was prepared and bought magic restoring items ahead of time. Just then Rakuro receives what he calls a sore loser email from Pencilgon. She is in disbelief that the attack master appeared from nowhere to save him, and she points out that her death was her own fault, so she didn't really lose to him. Pencilgon still wants to talk to Rakuro, so she tells him to call Oikatsu so the three of them can have a meeting in the Game Unite rounds. It's a bit strange that she doesn't just want to talk in SLF, so he is suspicious of her. Just then Oikatsu emails him after he was messaged by Pencilgon as well. Oikatsu shares Rakuro's skepticism, but they are both also very intrigued by what she might have to say. They decide not to back down, but for now Rakuro has bigger things to worry about. Emule finishes her delicious potion, and Rakuro eagerly explains that he is ready to get this unique scenario going. Rakuro wonders what the Mafia Rabbit boss meant by getting him up to snuff, so Emule decides to just show him by taking Rakuro to the arena, where they do their most serious battle training. They arrive at the Vorpal Coliseum, and Rakuro marvels at how huge it is. Emule reveals that her father boss wants Rakuro to fight 10 monsters there. Rakuro is excited for this boss rush type of training, and Emule explains that he will be strictly limited to the use of Vorpal weapons. That's totally fine for our boy, and he prepares the grind levels until he can wipe the smug smirk off of Pencilgon's face. Rakuro gets a good stretch in before pulling out his Vorpal Blades of Death and has the first monster come out. Our protagonist is pretty realistic as he doesn't expect to go 10 in a row on his first try. He plans to use trial and error to learn their attack patterns so he can slowly but surely attain victory. He is pretty shocked by his first opponent, though, since it's a pack of hounds that always spawn in groups of 5 or more. Their average level is 65, so Rakuro wonders if there has been some kind of mistake. His ruthless little bunny friend explains that there is no mistake, and that's just how the first opponent works. Rakuro knows he has his hands full, and is instantly wiped out by the pack. Back in the real world, Rei celebrates the fact that Rakuro talked to her, and she replays the moment in her mind. That isn't enough for the little stalker, though, as she reminds herself to find the courage to send him a friend request the next time they see each other. She wonders if he would accept and imagines our boy saying yes. Rai imagines that they will become friends in real life after that, and this sends her over the roof with joy. The problem is that she searched for him in Third Drama after she was done with the goons, but couldn't find him, so she wondered what he could be doing. We then see what he is doing as he stares down the hounds. It's pretty clear that these hounds just think of him as food, and Emule points out that this is already Rakuro's 7th attempt. Thankfully, the penalty for dying isn't applied in the arena. However, it's not just the sheer number of these beasts and their high level that is a huge pain for our beak-faced hero. It's their completely synchronized attacks. Rakuro does his best on this 7th, and he realizes that their coordination is the result of having a commander giving orders. He has fought them enough times, so he has started to see it. One of these monsters has been howling from a safe distance and never actually fights. Armed with this knowledge, our boy uses his spiral edge attack on their leader. This monster just runs away while the others rush to protect it. Their coordination gets all out of whack, so he knows that he was right. Knowing this, all Rakuro has to do is ignore the others and focus on the commander before he can bark out orders. He hunts down the leader of the pack, and Emule cheers for him when he eliminates it. With their master gone, there's really nothing left for him to fear, so he wipes out the uncoordinated bunch. Rakuro completes the first level of training, and Emule celebrates her bird-faced hero. Rakuro hopes that the next round won't be another group of monsters, and Emule assures him that the next one is definitely a single opponent. He really hopes that's the case, but is shocked when he sees that the next opponent is called the Parasite Tentacle. This hideous creature is just a teddy bear with snakes coming out its back, so this makes Rakuro think that it's practically another group. Rakuro used a hit-and-run strategy against the beast tentacles. Once all the tentacles were severed, the bear stopped moving, and he won. It only took him 4 tries. A really tough goblin was his 3rd opponent, but it was easier than the previous 2. This one only took him 2 tries. Some wild boar was his 4th opponent, but our boy has some in-game rodeo experience and used that to defeat it on his first try. His 5th opponent was a doozy though. It was some crazy acid-pooping bird, and this thing took him 112 tries. The next few opponents were relatively easy and only took him one each. Our hero's ninth opponent was some mega golem. It had some type of invisible energy shield that shaved off 70% of his HP when repelled by it. He eventually figured out that he needed to tear it down little by little, and he defeated it on his 7th try. Our boy is more excited than ever as he only has one opponent left, but is pretty upset to see that after all that fighting, he has only gone up 2 measly levels. This is of course because of the Vorpal Soul Collar that Vash forced onto him, which generously cuts his experience gains in half. Emil encourages the bird brain to take a break, since she has noticed that Rakuro has a terrible look in his eyes. Our boy doesn't think so, though, and makes a funny-looking face as he states that all the optimization is going great for him. Rakuro demands that the next monster come forward, and he is shocked to see that Vash has come for a visit. Vash is impressed that Rakuro has already reached the final level, and points out that the timing couldn't be any more perfect. Rakuro knows that there was no coincidence as he thinks about how beating the 9th monster just triggered an event flag. Vash explains that for Rakuro's final opponent, he will have him fight a monster that he just caught. Vash really had to go out of the way to get this monster, and he sends the chained-up beast into the arena. Vash frees the creature, and our boy can't figure out what kind of monster it is. He thinks it's some dummy from long ago that tried to fuse with a tree to gain a longer life. Vash observes closely, and doubts that Rakuro can beat this monster in his current state. Because of this, he changes the win criteria. This monster is apparently insanely strong, so all Rakuro would have to do to win is survive for 5 minutes. This thing is a wood mage, but Rakuro is eager to prove that he can complete the level. Rakuro is confident for this test of endurance, but is instantly surprised by the monster's first attack. This crazy tree thing creates roots out of nowhere, and forces Rakuro to run for his life. Vash explains that he is a big fan of Rakuro's confidence, but points out that he will really have to back it up now if he wants to survive. Rakuro's getting pretty stressed evading all of its attacks, and realizes that it's going to be a really long 5 minutes. Out of the over 30 million SLF players, Rakuro is the first one to fight this terrifying monster. Rakuro wouldn't learn this until far in the future, but we see that this tree mage is an insane level 120. Rakuro does his best to avoid all the roots, but they are seemingly endless. Our boy is crazy as he attempts to close the gap with the monster even though all he needs to do is survive. Getting close doesn't do much though, since Rakuro's attack doesn't even scratch the tree branch wizard. It's pretty clear that physical attacks won't work on it, and Rakuro must now dodge this thing's chains as well. The bird brain realizes that he should just dodge his way to victory, and Emil reveals that 1 minute has already passed. 4 minutes remain, so Vash is eager to see Rakuro's Vorpal Soul. Rakuro continues to dodge away, but it's getting more difficult, and he realizes that his opponent is an absolute beast. Root spear attacks that are almost impossible to dodge since they aren't telegraphed, and chains that look like they will destroy anything they come in contact with. As if those things weren't terrifying on their own, they also chase him around like he is a magnet to them. It's almost enough to make him give up on dodging altogether, and Emil becomes increasingly concerned for him. Even with all that, there is still something worse. This tree monster keeps on slipping in magic attacks every now and then. Some are electrical and some are fireballs. The more time passes, the more this wooden Harry Potter mixes up its magic types. This time it uses an ice spell attack, and Root can hardly manage to survive it all, as the attacks seem to be getting denser as well. The number of chains and roots are increasing, and the magic attacks are starting to cover a wider area. The magical tree branch gives a menacing look, and Rakuro determines that if the density of the attacks keep increasing, he will be dead well before he reaches 5 minutes. Just then, purple mist erupts from the ground, and it's just another spell from the tree's arsenal that Rakuro has to worry about. The fight is beginning to seem futile since this thing can nullify physical attacks, and constantly adds attacks of its own. Rakuro begins to think that he would have a better chance against the Lycagon that gave him his scars, and he really begins to lose hope. He is getting so tired that he can barely even think straight anymore. Rakuro is ready to give up, return home to eat something while he thinks of a strategy and try again later. There isn't really a penalty for losing, so he doesn't really care anymore. Just then, Rakuro snaps himself out of it, and reminds himself that he is in a pushover. He went through the same feeling of hopelessness against the mud digger when he gave up and had to rely on Emil. Rakuro lets out a battle cry as he is reinvigorated, and refuses to let himself cut corners. He thinks that playing so many trash games all his life almost turned his brain into garbage as well. But that ends now. Emil and Vash can sense that something has changed, and Rakuro makes another push. He states that he has overloaded on trash games and needs to balance it out with God game. Rakuro runs along a route to once again get close to the tree and promises himself that he won't give up. Vash is impressed that he was able to break through the waves of attacks to reach melee range, but says that there really is no point since Rakuro can only dish out basic attacks. Rakuro shocks everyone though when he kicks the monster staff out of its hand. Rakuro is seriously tired, so he's ready to just beat the living tree and go straight to bed. He realized that even though the monster can nullify physical damage, the attack itself still gets through. Rakuro doesn't let the tree branch get its staff back, and he wonders what will happen to the tree if it has to fight without it. It's clear that it can't cast its spells anymore, but it still has its roots and chains. Something that Rakuro did learn from all his years of gaming is that in a post-apocalyptic world you survive by looting. He uses the snatching skills he learned from Unite rounds and grabs hold of the staff. Vash and Emil are both impressed, but there's still 2 minutes left on the timer, and this is the time when Vash wants to see what Rakuro can really do. The tree goes insane, and Rakuro realizes that losing the staff must trigger its berserk mode. The attacks are getting more intense, so Rakuro wishes he would have gotten some kind of warning. Little Emil continues cheering on our brave hero, and tells him that he only needs to survive for 1 more minute. This is exactly what Rakuro's mobility build was made for, so there's no way he's going to lose after getting so close. However, one of the chains eventually grabs a hold of him, and just as he expected it applies several debuffs. He won't be able to dodge, and the tree wizard is closing in on him. Rakuro sends the staff straight into the sky, causing the tree to go after it instead. The tree finally retrieves it, but Rakuro can't believe that the monster actually fetched it. Rakuro mocks the dumb monster since it would have won if it just kept attacking, but now the time is up. He calls it a woodblock head, but is shocked when the monster just decides to continue attacking. Rakuro runs for his life while pointing out that the fight should be over. Luckily, Vash steps in since the 5 minutes are over, and completely deletes the monster right out of the game. Rakuro is the winner, and Vash is really impressed by his Vorpal soul. Rakuro can't believe Vash just decimated it, and wonders how he was able to land a physical attack on it. Vash explains that it can only nullify physical attacks when it has its staff, and without its staff it's just an animated tree. Emil arrives to celebrate, and Rakuro's excited to hear that he will now be getting his reward for completing the quest. Vash declares him an honorary Rabatuza, but Rakuro thought winning would come with a rare item or something. Vash removes the Vorpal collar around Rakuro's neck, officially completing the unique scenario, and the little rabbits leave. Surprisingly, there is a bonus unique scenario called Vorpal Epic. However, Rakuro is just upset that he didn't get a single piece of real loot and logs out of the game. It's pretty late, so Rakuro decides to just get some sleep. The next morning, Rakuro reads that the recommended level for the bonus unique scenario is 80, but he's only level 31. There is lore behind the quest, but he gave up on reading it all when he was overwhelmed. There are entire clans dedicated to learning all the lore in the game, so it would be very difficult for him to do so on his own. Rakuro decides to take a break from all the unique scenario stuff. Instead, he will check out the town and head for the next area. Emil finishes up watering her plants and is ready to move forward as well. Rakuro realizes that if he goes out looking like he does, then he will surely get mobbed by peekers and info hunters again. Changing his headgear won't be enough either, since his like a good marks would draw attention too. Emil proves to be as useful as ever, and recommends that he cover his entire form. He has no clue how to do that, but she knows just the place. They go to see a little rabbit named Peets, who is actually Emil's little brother. He acquires goods and sells them in Rabatuza. He sells in other places as well, but he has to transform into a human to do it, so he doesn't do it much. The little bunny calls him a birdman, so Rakuro proves he is a human by removing his mask. Emil is shocked that he removed his mask for a moment, since she was sure that he had some deep dark reason for keeping it on all the time. Emil asks about the rare thing that Pete just found, and he goes looking for it in his inventory. Afterwards, we see that this item looks like some kind of bedsheet, and Rakuro looks like he's wearing a ghost costume on Halloween. They go to get a map for the area around 3rd Rima, and Rakuro gets all sorts of weird looks. Moments later, Rakuro can't hold back anymore and states just how much he hates the bedsheet costume looking thing. Rakuro calms down as he realizes that at least he got everything he needed. Rakuro points out that Emil burns through magic power really fast when in human form as she chucks down another potion. They need to get moving to the next area, and they have 3 routes they can take. One is the Fell Fate Caldera, a place where water is collected in the crater of a long-extinct volcano to form a lake. The second is the Prismatic Forest Grotto, a maze of caverns overgrowing with plant life. The last route is the Iron Ruins of Divinity, ruins from the era of divinity that gets its name from its many hovering iron boards. Rakuro realizes the seriousness of this decision and tells Emil to quiet down, which he recommends going to the Fell Fate Caldera. Rakuro decides to go through the prismatic forest and explains his brilliant decision. He declares that they must avoid the ruins of divinity at all costs because he believes it's a trap. While Rakuro is busy complimenting his own genius, Emil notices a person she kind of remembers watching them. This armored person looks like a creepy stalker, and Rakuro is shocked to see who it is.